Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys football. The fellas heading down to the Big 12 that has given us some of the most exciting games in college football. This one might be the best Big 12 game we've seen all year as TCU goes on the road to play the Texas Longhorns. This game, you'll see some of the most skilled offensive weapons. You'll see it all over the country. You look at Texas, guys like Bijan Robinson, Xavier Worthy, TCU. Kendra Miller, been one of the best running backs in the Big 12. Quentin Johnston, Darius Davis. The amount of offensive firepower you are going to see in this game is going to be very fun. If you're a fan of offensive football, this is a game to watch. Before we get into the game, Texas coming in at 7-point favorites at home. We just want to say thank you guys for all the support you guys have shown the channel. The Longhorn fans, you guys have been absolutely awesome. This is one of the more fun teams to talk about in the country just based on how much talent they have in this TCU team. We've talked a lot of TCU football as well. They've been kind of the Cinderella story of the 2022 college football year. This is going to be a good one. If you guys do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, I'm going to kick it off to you. My mind a little bit in a pretzel on this one. What are your early takes on this game here?
Yeah, I mean, this is as big of a game as I think we'll see in the Big 12 this year because I know Texas' record is what it is, but I think that's an extremely good football team down in Austin. And, I mean, TCU is just – they're winning games. They're not beating the wheels off of anybody. They're winning by about 7, it feels like almost every game except for that Oklahoma game where they did jump on them after the injury to Gabriel. But they're finding ways to do it, and hats off to him. Duggan, he's just a gamer. He just figures it out.
This TCU team, it's looked not pretty, and you see Vegas not really valuing them. I mean, you see have a TCU team that's 9-0 going to a 6-3 Texas team. They're a top 10 team in the college football playoff rules, I think 6. And yet they're getting a 7-point cushion going to Texas because they haven't looked dominant. That being said, they're 7-1-1 against the spread. They continue to cover spreads. They continue to win football games. And that's something to be said. Like Sonny Dykes in this offense just figure out to score when they need points. And this, I want to start on the offense side of football for TCU because this is where I see one of the bigger matchups of the game. Texas has been very good on defense. You look at what they've done. They're only allowing 21 points per game. They're very, very good. Total offense, they're only allowing 5 yards per play, only 3.4 yards on the ground. What they're not great at is the secondary has been a little vulnerable. 65% completion percentage, over 255 yards per game through the air. This is where I think TCU can really get after.
Yeah, and that is the problem because as much as – I mean, there's probably no unit in this Texas front seven that has turned a 180 since last year in the years under Tom Herman because they're tackling, it seems like, extremely well. Their defensive line is emerging to be one of the better units in the Big 12 where they're able to get pressure on the passer. They're stopping runs like Keandre Coburn really playing well. And he's been the stout guy for that team. But, I mean, just guys taking their level up to – or taking their game up to a new level and just playing effective. But you're right. They do give up. They'll give up some big plays in the past. That's kind of what's been hurting them.
And there's no offense better suited to match up against that than the TCU Horned Frogs. To echo what you've been saying, this Texas team, we're used to saying not physical, not great tacklers. Guys like Jalen Ford, DeMarvion Overshown, really putting it together at that linebacker spot, and that's why this Texas defense is much improved from last year. That being said, this TCU team, you look at what they have on the offense side of the ball, and you look at just their average per catch of time. Like Max Duggan, they hit explosive plays better than any team in the country. Quentin Johnston, still in my mind, the best wide receiver in the country. I mean, you put a guy who's 6'4", 215 pounds, who has the wheels like him, the ability to run after the catch like him. I think he's truly special. Darius Davis, probably the fastest player in the Big 12. Tay Barber, Savion Williams, Jared Wiley. They have speed, they have size, and they throw the ball to everybody. And that's where I think Texas might struggle a little bit.
Yeah, and I don't know. That's the thing is though, if they can beat them up front a little bit, because I do think, I think they can do that. They've been doing it effectively against most teams. I think TCU's offensive line has played a lot better than I think a lot of people thought. But it wasn't thought to be a great unit, which was probably why TCU didn't come in as a favorite to win this conference. So it has taken the level way up, and Sonny Dykes has done a good job. But I do think there is a shot Texas can be a little disruptive. And if they can contain Duggan, and the problem is they weren't able to do it against Sanders. Like when they let him get running, it did turn into a bit of an issue, and Duggan's certainly the athlete to expose it. But I don't know. This Texas team, I do feel like can pound people up a little bit or beat people up on the offensive line. And you can disrupt this TCU offense in that way. I think you can keep them at bay and let your offense go to work.
In kind of what it's a very similar scheme that you'd want to stop TCU that Georgia did to Tennessee. Like just take away the big plays, make Max Duggan take what's there and make them march 12, 10 plays down the field. Hopefully they don't pick up a holding. Hopefully they don't pick up a penalty or turnover in completion. And that's kind of how you stop this team, because if you give them the big plays and you turn it into a track meet, they're going to take advantage of you. Now, flipping it to the other side, just what I said about TCU, Texas is equally as capable of being that explosive. I mean, a guy like Quinn Ewers, who I think this game largely depends on what Quinn Ewers you get. You watch him against Oklahoma State, he looked completely lost, especially in the second half. But what Texas is able to do when they're in trouble, turn around and give it to Bijan Robinson. This offensive line has been phenomenal. And when you have two running backs who are one of the two best running backs, not only in the Big 12, but the country, with Roshan Johnson and Bijan Robinson, that's massive for a young quarterback like Quinn Ewers. When you're struggling with your rhythm, turn the ball around and give it to one of the best backs in the country.
Yeah, and they've been able to do it, obviously, all year. Bijan, he's a sick player. I mean, Roshan Johnson as a number two is really good too. But you're right. And you talk about units that have made some monster strides for Texas, like the offensive line, another unit that's flipped on its head in terms of they went a little younger and they did.
Dogs.
They had talent. It's like kind of like LSU, and LSU's emerging into a very good offensive line too, with the young guys who are finally figuring it out. You get the same sense with Texas. Like as these young ultra talents figure out their game, they're playing really well, and yeah, they're a problem for these Big 12 defenses that aren't used to the physicality that Texas brings.
And what you want to do is you look at this TCU team where they struggled. They run that 3-3-5. They kind of have some light boxes. I really do like their backers. Johnny Hodges, Jamoy Hodges, D. Winters, all very good backers, all very good tacklers, but they've been a little bit exposed. Texas Tech ran for 5 yards per carry. They've been giving up 4 yards per carry on the ground. They haven't been very stout, but they have a very good secondary. What I want Texas to do is run the ball, establish that run game, get kind of some heavy boxes, and that's when Quinn Ewers can get that deep ball going to guys like Xavier.
Also needs to commit to the run too when they're doing it. Like it felt like a little bit against Oklahoma State. They got away from it and threw the ball too much where they were moving the ball. I want to see them if you can pound this team down on your run game, like just do it. You're a good enough team to do it. And I get you want to use your guys like Quinn Ewers and Xavier Worthy and Jatavion Sanders, all guys who are very, very good. But I don't want to see Texas get into that mindset that they need to throw, and that's how they need to win, especially if they're proving to be capable of running on this team. That you're right. It's like the linebackers are solid players, but I don't think they're pro-level athletes if just by my eye test.
Yeah, and if you look at what type the offensive weapons, you have the backs, but then Xavier Worthy, there's not much of a better deep threat than Xavier Worthy in terms of the speed and the tracking ability he has. Yeah. And you couple that with a guy like Jordan Whittington, who just works underneath. He works the middle of the field, kind of built like a running back. I believe one of our listeners said that he was formerly a running back. I didn't know that, but I would believe it. I mean, he is built like a thick dude. And then Jatavion Sanders, one of the best tight ends in the country. Problem is, that's all they really have through the air. And then their next leading receiver is Keelan Robinson, kind of the running back three, the gadget back, if you will. I don't really know where I'm leaning. This seems like a lot of points for TCU. And I'm not necessarily saying they're going to go on the road and win this football game, although I'm not ruling that out. It seems like this game could be like whoever has the football last kind of wins this game. But 7 points seems like a lot of points to give to a team that hasn't lost yet this year, in a Texas team that we've seen the tale of two cities. Like we've seen them be really, really good, but we've also seen them be not so good against teams like Oklahoma State. Dill, what's your lean on this game here?
It feels wildly disrespectful to TCU to have this at outside of 7 and up.
Vegas has been disrespecting TCU all year. That's why we've made some money.
Yeah, but they haven't been that wrong on it. If they shouldn't have covered against West Virginia, they're scraping these covers out. Well, they're not really better than like the Kansas States and the West Virginias. And I mean, we're just kind of waiting for Texas to put it all together when Quinn Ewers plays a rock solid game and up to the level he's played at moments. I kind of like Texas. I think this is going to be a game where TCU gets exposed a little bit. This, I think, is going to be as physical of a defense as they've played. I think it's the best running back they'll see all year, or best running game. I think the dynamicness of Texas is probably makes them better than Kansas State overall as a rushing attack. So I think, I don't know. I just kind of get the feeling that they're going to get exposed. That Vegas is right.
I think this line is predicated on the ceiling that Texas has. Like if Texas puts it all together, and someone was saying in the chat, like Texas just hasn't, like it's hard to deny that if this team fires on all cylinders, it's one of the best teams in the country with all the talent they have. And I think that's why you see a line like -7. Like Texas being 7-point favorites, they can certainly cover that if they play great ball. If both teams play very good football, Texas is probably covering the 7 points. That being said, we've seen TCU play a lot better of football than Texas. That's why I'm probably going with TCU with all the points, just because TCU's been a team that's covered almost every single game. They've won every single game. And when you look at two teams, like which team do you trust more right now? I'm probably trusting TCU more than I do Texas. I'm going to have action on this game, probably the over. But anything, like this game is going to be absolutely off the walls. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be one of those situations where whatever quarterback has the ball with the last minute left on the clock, probably winning this football game, because these two offenses and the playmakers around these two quarterbacks are really, really special. This is probably the best game of the slate. Cannot wait for it. 7:30 kickoff, I believe, on ABC. Get locked and loaded for it. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be a track meet. And again, we appreciate all the support you guys have shown. If you do like the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate y'all, and we'll talk to y'all later.